Another great power panel for you guys. Cliff Schechter is the president of the firm Libertas, and he's the author of The Real McCain. Lenny McAllister is a political strategist and commentator and a good friend on the right. Good to have his presence here on the Young Turks as well. Now, topic number one is Obama too busy for Wisconsin. He was giving 8 different interviews in 6 different swing states, and here he is at WBAY in Green Bay. Let's listen.
There are a lot of Democrats in the state who have told me they're upset you did not come to the state and campaign for Tom Barrett.
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is that as President of the United States, I've got a lot of responsibilities. I was supportive of Tom and have been supportive of Tom. Obviously, you know, I would love to have seen a different result.
All right, Cliff, let me start with you. Are you buying it? He was just simply too busy to show up in Wisconsin?
No, I'm not buying it at all. I mean, too busy. This is the second most important election of this year for the Democrats. It wasn't just his schedule. The Democratic Party, the DNC, Obama, they didn't put money in the way the right did, so that Barrett was outspent like 8-1. You know, I don't understand the long-term thinking. It just seems to be whenever there's a risk, when he has to fight for something, the president will back away from that fight. You know, and this just reminds me too much of that.
Lenny, it's interesting that he has time to do 8 interviews right after the election, including one in Wisconsin, and he didn't have any time to send out anything but a tweet. Is Cliff right? Was he just scared of the political ramifications if Barrett lost?
This sounds an awful lot like 2009 in Virginia. It sounds an awful lot like the senatorial race here in Illinois for his old Senate seat. He backs away when there's the risk of being tied to a loser. And that's unfortunate because he doesn't show folks that he's willing to be your friend for thick or for thin. And he was supposed to be a different type of politician, and I hope that this doesn't bite him in 2012 in November. It might not bite him in Wisconsin, but it might bite him in other swing states.
I think you guys are entirely right. So let's go on to the second topic then. GOP class warfare. Are they conducting some of their own? I actually thought David Atkins wrote a terrific article about this at Hullabaloo, where he talked about, wait a minute, now why can't we say anything about the rich and then we get class warfare charges? But when the Republicans go after pensions and say, oh my God, aren't you envious of the union's pensions? That isn't class warfare. I think that's a great question. Lenny, let me throw that to you. Why isn't that class warfare?
It's a good question to ask, but one thing that Republicans have that they can hide behind is the fact that you have some examples of fiscal irresponsibility behind pensions. Again, you go back to where I am here in Chicago, Illinois. You look at how the pension funds have been funded over the years. 54% of what's needed in these funds are actually there with hardcore cash. This is a very serious problem. And a lot of times this goes back to pandering and abuses that go back to political ties and other type of manipulations of the system. And it gives Republicans an opportunity to speak to that versus some of the class warfare arguments that Democrats speak towards Republicans on and vice versa when that issue comes up.
Cliff?
Look, when we're talking about fiscal issues here, I mean, the guys on Wall Street almost took down the world economy a few years ago. We're still feeling the negative effects of that. You talked earlier in the show about the income levels and how it's gone down for almost everyone, with the exception of those in the top, probably 0.1%. It's just a lack of effective populism on the left. It's what we've grown accustomed to, sadly, which is if they don't stand up and point out who the people are, tell the narrative, tell the story of who it is that's caused the troubles that we have today, well, then people who have lost their incomes are left to just listen to the blather on the right, which is to blame unions and to blame people who've earned these pensions and worked hard. You know, I mean, you hear it the other day, Alan Simpson coming out and saying that people who just want to get their Social Security are greedy geezers. You know, this is what they do. And if you don't have a story on the left that you're being honest with people and telling them who it is that took down the world economy, you know, who did this, if you're just inviting them into your cabinet and making friends with them, then this is what we get left with.
But Cliff, there's a difference between that and looking at the abuses with pensions where people are double, in some instances, triple dipping. When you're looking at situations where people are going into these pension funds and robbing them and then either running for office or other instances. So you do have those situations where you have abuses.
There's some of that even here in Ohio. There's people who've abused it even here, the state I'm in Ohio, where they use the top year they got paid to base their pension on. I'm not saying there doesn't need to be pension reform in some places. There does. But to compare that drop in the bucket to the amount of wealth that was lost because of the deregulation and corruption on Wall Street. When it comes to who people have to blame for their current situation, for the fact they don't have a retirement, for the fact that their homes are being foreclosed upon, it's not the guy next door with the good pension. It's the guy that just made $500 million for tanking a company. It's the guys that made billions of dollars off of this whole thing.
Guys,
We're talking about who can win a political argument, and right now the progressives are not spinning this properly to win the political argument. You may have facts on both sides, but right now the conservatives are winning the political argument because of how the fiscal irresponsibility with pension and pension reforms has played out.
Yeah, I got to leave it right there.
Progressives don't try.
I agree with both of your last points, which is that, somehow the Republicans have convinced the country that a teacher's pension is a bigger injustice than the banker getting billions of dollars of public money. How did they do that? It's amazing. They're really good at politics and really bad at policy, unfortunately. All right, Cliff Schechter, Lenny McAllister, you guys are great. Thank you for the good discussion. We appreciate it. All right, now when we come back.
Thanks so much, Jay.
When we come back.